What's up, my dudes? Okay, RF, I see you. I see you. His jump scaling kind of turning me on a little bit right now, Doug. Not even going to lie to you, bro. Wow, dude. This is definitely one of their more fun factor tracks they've made this year so far. I would say that for sure. Yes. Spency boy likey. This has got it going on right here, dude. And it's not even necessarily that there's a lot of, super big rhythms on this track, but just that like jump scaling size, right? It makes so much of a difference on a track where you see how I'm kind of making little mistakes on these jumps. You got to have the jumps to a certain size before they start making that even possible to really happen, you know? And it's like, I think what a lot of people don't understand is it's a very fine line between like where the jumps will be big enough and not big enough, you know? I mean, it can be just ever so slightly bigger that you make the jumps, but it makes them so much more skill gapped. Obviously, these whoops, I mean, they could be a little bit bigger, but I think they were still okay for how fast you could get going into them. You can definitely crash in these whoops right here if you try to hold it wide-ass open into them. So that was pretty cool. A lot of sections on this track, you kind of, like if you'll really go inside on a corner, it seems like you're actually going faster, and it can make some of these jump rhythms harder. Good example would be like this right here, you know, going inside, then getting over that double, and then hitting this Supercross triple that finally has enough peak to it, right? Actually feels like you're jumping up in the air properly. Obviously these corners are still, you know, kind of that Erode type, smoothed off, rolled off kind of vibe or whatever, but overall, I mean, this is a lot more like it right here, bro. It's pretty cool when you get a finish line jump that's actually big enough to where you can sit there and toss the bike over, you know. I miss being able to do that on jumps in this game, and a lot of these RF tracks, there was just not a whole lot of bigger jumps like that where you could really throw whips and stuff on. Of course, that's not what this is about, obviously, but still, it's fun. That's what I mean by some of these jumps are bigger style like this on this track. Gives it a lot of fun factor like that. But yeah, if this would have been more of like how your jump scaling was on that Anaheim 1 track, bruh, I would not have been nowhere near as harsh on you. You know, this feels more like a pro track to me right here. Spitzy Boy's trying to figure out some of these lines here. They got the jumps pretty quick out of the corners, you know, of some of these corners. Pretty cool. That fact alone right there adds some skill gap to the jump rhythms because you don't have much distance at all coming out of that corner to hit that first jump of a rhythm, right? Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this one, RF. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was able to just kind of start going around the track and have fun. You know, I could tell when I was trying to hit some of these jumps, sometimes it would make my front end kind of go higher than I wanted to, or kind of get my balance offset, you know, over some of these jump rhythms. And I like that. I like where it can actually upset my bike. It can potentially upset my bike, you know. I like when they make a track that's hard enough jump scaling wise, big enough jump scaling wise, that it can actually send your bike in a like either an endo or a where the front end's coming up too high on you. You know, if you make your jumps too short, it seems like it doesn't really do that at all. You know, it doesn't really matter how you hit the jump. It ain't gonna mess you up any, right? But you can toss it over this finish line right here. And it's got a cool little triple. Let me back that up. Back that ass up, Spency boy. Cool little triple right here. You know, you got to be on the gas to hit this little triple. Kind of cool because it forces you to commit. And then you got to be able to get on your brakes real hard into this corner to stop yourself, right? Plenty of potential speed you can get into these whoops right here. I was almost wide open in this gameplay, but not quite, right? I was still kind of blipping that throttle just a little bit, like midways through. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool track right here, bro. I just like how this track came together, honestly. Yeah, I know that may shock some of you boys, but this is more like it right here, you know what I'm saying? I feel like you can still have a lot of fun and skill gap and separation on this track, even if you're not running any Erode on it, you know? It's got enough to it, obstacle-wise, to where I feel like it can still challenge you and still sort of, you know, even if you're in there on single player, just with a couple of your buddies messing around or whatever, right? There's still enough potential separation there. Whereas I felt like quite a few of their tracks they were making real early this year just didn't quite have that, you know? Yeah, I mean, I would say this jump scaling is damn near perfect. And that's kind of my outlook on it, you know, like this finish line on this track is probably a little bit bigger technically than the real life finish line is, but that's okay. We're in a video game, okay? And that's my biggest thing. It's like, if anything, you don't ever want your jumps to be smaller than they technically were one-to-one scaling in real life. If anything, you want them a little bit bigger. And that kind of feels like that's how this track is right here, because we're in a video game, right? Everything's easier as it is in general than riding a real life dirt bike. So, you know, I feel like this kind of scaling right here just fits MX Simulator a little bit better. And a lot of these jumps on this track, like, you know, hitting a triple in like this, you got to be careful and not over jump it any, because that next jump right there, you see how it's taller, right? So there's kind of skill gap in that sense of don't over jump it, or you might pop off right there because you got a lot bigger of a jump face, right? And right here, it's got a cool where, like, sometimes you can get the speed to pop all the way up over this table to double. Sometimes you can't quite get the speed out of that transition, so that's pretty sick. And here, if you try to go far inside, it makes hitting this triple a little more tricky. So there's kind of like a multi-option line right there. Still can go around the outside if you're on a 250 or if you're more like beginner-style player. And I feel like that's how a lot of this track is, like, even coming up to this triple right here, you know, to be able to really jump up over this first double before the main Supercross triple. If you're a little slower in the game, you can just go further and further outside right here, and it'll make it easier for you. It'll be a little slower, but it'll make it easier for you, you know? That's what I've really felt like with this track. Like, you could really, it's kind of fun for everybody in a sense, you know? I feel like the pros can have fun on it. I feel like beginners could still have some fun on this kind of a track right here. Yeah, here's another example right here. A lot of these rhythms felt like you actually had to have timing on them too. It didn't just feel like you could blindly hit everything on the very first lap perfectly, you know? Even like right here, when you hit this triple in onto this table, you got to be careful and not over jump off of this table, because then there's a bigger jump face right here. You know, there's kind of a little bit more timing and thinking involved on this kind of a track, right? And like I'm saying, when you're talking about rhythm jumps or really any kind of jump, like I'm saying, it doesn't take a lot to make it just big enough to where it almost like multiplies the skill gap of it by like tenfold when you make it just a little bit bigger. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I mean, shit, this is about their best track they've made this year, I would say. There was like one other one in there that they made so far that was similar to this, but I don't know if it was quite as good as this one. This is a lot more kind of jump scaling that I felt like we should have gotten from RF in 2022. You know what I'm saying? You can whip it over the main Supercross triple real good. Yeah, you got to stay in it to get across these rhythms. You got to stay engaged. There's not really a whole lot of this track that feels like you can just be, farting around and still get around it. You got to be thinking about what you're doing, So that is a very cool element to it. Now, one thing that might would have made them make this finish line a little bit bigger is because it jumps across that first start corner. That might have been why they made it that big like that. I don't know, but like, dude, this is drastically different than the finish line that you had on like the Anaheim 1 track. I mean, they're not even like the same kind of obstacle. That's how different this really is right here. You know what I mean? And when you make the jumps a little bit bigger like this, it's not like a beginner couldn't hit it or an amateur couldn't hit it. It just makes it to where there's a lot more room for precision on it, to where you can separate yourself, The taller and the taller you make a jump face, it just opens up that potential precision to go faster on it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So either way, yeah, this is a lot more like it right here, bruh. And even if you had the Erode turned on, it would just make it a little more difficult. So, yeah, it's pretty solid track right here, dude. I'm not even going to play around, not even going to mess around. I mean, yeah, there's still no pre-made. Yes, it would have been cool to have been able to hit this quad into this corner. Yeah, there's still a couple things like that. But I think for what RF has done so far this year, taking all that into consideration, I'm going to say this is pretty good right here. You know what I mean? So, nonetheless, dude, yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like it. I like it. Keep doing it. I like it. Smithy Boy likes it.